Welcome to Things My Mother Forgot to Mention.
The podcast where we say everything our mothers didn't.
I'm Jan, a trauma therapist and author turned rogue storyteller, here to talk openly about the body, aging, and all the, wait, what? Moments of womanhood.
And I'm Patty, an online business and tech nerd whose purpose is to elevate the voices of women in our world and who doesn't believe in taboo topics. Things My Mother Forgot to Mention is the podcast for every woman who's ever said, wait, why didn't anyone mention this to me?
Join Jan and Patty, two outspoken, curious, outrageous women, as they dive headfirst into a messy, magical, and often WTF realities of aging, health, and quite simply being a woman.
From rogue chin hairs and vaginal thinning
to mental health, perimenopause, and scalp cancer. Yes, really.
Nothing is off limits. It's funny, it's raw, it's real talk your mother definitely skipped.
Let's get into it.
Hello, Jan.
Hello, Patty. So how are you? Are you excited? Because this is the last day before vacation.
Yes, I am. I have a lot, as you know, I've had some personal stuff that's happening this week also. So my brother's flying in tonight. And so there's basically a lot of family things happening up until the day that I then leave. And then I'm going on a trip with 15 women to a river.
Right.
So
it's not flooding in Texas.
It's not, well, it was flooding down where we're going, actually.
I know.
Yeah,
She
but
told me.
yeah.
Well, make sure you bring a life vest.
I will, but it's much better, and there's no more rain down there or anything.
Okay.
So, but it's hot up here. It's going to be in the hundreds, 104 this week.
Ooh.
So it's going to be hot down there too, and they have more humidity down there. So,
yeah, I can imagine.
But apparently, I've never been down there before. But this is like an annual trip with these women, and apparently, the river that we'll be on, which is the Guadalupe River, is very cold. So that's nice. So basically, one of the days, there's again 15 of us, which is important for people to know because I'm an introvert. So and I'm sharing a room with like 3 or 4 people at any given time. But at some point, I guess we're gonna tie all of our inner tubes together and just float down the river.
Yes, now that's a lot of fun. That I've done that
I've never
up in
done it.
The Saco River up in New Hampshire. We see it's in the White Mountains.
Yeah.
And we would do that, tie and 2 inner tubes and just float down, and have a good time, sing and drink.
So that's what we're doing. Yep, there's gonna be.
Singing and drinking.
I make a really good rosé sangria, and so I've got this like portable thingy that I'm gonna fill with rosé sangria, and we'll have on the river. So yeah, I'm excited. It's gonna be
well,
fun.
good. I hope it's fun and you get some actually rest.
Yes, yeah, for sure. And then I have a few days off when I get back to decompress, so I'll rest then too. But how are you?
I'm doing pretty okay, trudging the road of happy destiny is what I call it. That's an A term for the recovery, my recovery from my knee. So today I had PT and I'm doing, icing my knee right now. And, it's a long process and I guess I don't have a choice. I'm in it. So
yeah. But once it's healed, it's gonna,
I'm hoping that does.
When the pain goes away, then you won't have any pain and you had lots before. So,
yeah.
Yeah.
Well, today we're talking about some form of relationships or guidelines for relationships, I think I put it.
Yeah.
And I think that the reason I brought this up is because we did have Lisa Merla Booth on near the beginning of our, wasn't it that we've been in business
on.
Our podcast for a year?
Over a year now, yeah.
Awesome. And so I've been thinking about, what would be really has been important to me about relationships. And I wanted to share some of my experience with that. So what do you think?
I love it. I'm here for it. And, I always have lots of things to share. So, but yeah, you were talking about how at your son's rehearsal dinner, you
Yes.
stood up and you said some things, and that
Mhm.
it resonated a lot with people there, that
Yes.
they came up to you afterwards and said,
Yeah.
"Oh, the thing that you said."
Right.
So that's
Yeah.
why
So,
we,
in
yeah.
fact, I did it both of my sons. My other
Oh,
son got
okay.
married 2 years before, and I did it at that wedding rehearsal. And then I did it at just in February at my son's oldest son's wedding rehearsal. And it was we. I got a chance to talk as the mother of this
Mm.
of the groom. Not,
Right.
I wasn't that important because I wasn't the mother of the bride.
Right. Right.
But I did put my 2 cents in, and it was very interesting. There was a big group because
Mm.
they had a huge wedding, and there were about 30 people there.
Oh,
That's a
wow.
big rehearsal dinner.
Yeah.
And I got up, and just from my 30 years of being a therapist and working with couples, I worked with couples for about 10 years of those 30 is I had to share to my sons because now they're off in their lives and they've been launched and they're not at our home anymore, so
Right.
I can't give them any more advice. I thought, okay, I'm just going to tell everybody what I think is from my wisdom, and
Hmm.
including my own relationship. I've been married, let's see, almost 36 years, which
Yeah.
unbelievable. It's
Yeah.
really it's frightening because before I ever got married, I think the longest relationship I had was maybe a year and a half, 2 years. That would be about it.
Mm. Yeah.
So you want to hear them?
I
There's
do. I
three
want
of
to
them.
hear it.
Okay,
Yeah.
okay. So the first one is that love is nothing you have, it's something you do.
Mm.
So many people are like, huh? They fall in love. I
Yeah.
can't tell you if I had a quarter for every time a couple came in and said, we're not in love anymore. I'm like, oh my gosh, what does that mean?
Right.
In love, what romantic love where you can hardly keep your hands off of each other, like the feelings always great. And I got to tell you, it's feelings are not always great in relationship.
No. Yeah.
You're nodding your head.
Yeah.
Yes, and so much of being in love is really about the practice of being loving to your partner.
Yeah.
And that's the key. It's an action verb. It's not like something you get and you're done with. So
Yeah.
that was my first one. And I don't know how many people didn't give me feedback on that one,
But I
but
love that.
what do
Yeah.
you love about that?
Well, I'm in love with that jam because I love that, because I think that you're right, that there's such this idea of love will find me and I will
Yes.
find love, and that when people talk about being in love and people talk about love, they do talk about it in a very passive way. And
Mhm.
I think you're 100% correct, because it's not passive. And in order to, I mean, think about any of your relationships, family, right? Like, so
Yeah.
right now is a
Yeah.
great example, right? I'm in the middle of
Yeah.
all of this stuff and dealing with the loss of a family member. And in the middle of that, there's, everybody's grieving in their own ways. And some people have been to therapy, some people haven't. So there's a lot of big feelings and there's a lot of big personalities. And so as I go into this week, I'm choosing to love my family and to be present and give them grace. And it's a very active thing. Whereas some people in the
It is.
family are struggling with each other and like, well, that person's blah 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 blah. And like, and it's like we could do that. And I think it's very similar in that way in any kind of relationship you're in, where you have to choose. You have to choose
Yeah, you
to
have to choose being
yeah.
loving. Okay, because so many of us, and this, I'm not going to get into it too deeply about we get triggered and we go
Right.
into parts of ourselves that are retaliatory or angry or resentful or want to pay someone
Mhm.
back. And those are not the ones that are going to really be practicing the practice of love.
Right.
And so being loving means with your partner, like right now, I'm upset with them, but how do I still stay in the practice of loving and my commitment to loving this person? And
Mhm.
that's what because people think that, oh, once that's gone, well, I got to go find it somewhere else again. And
Right.
that is not how it is. I
Right.
mean, certainly there are circumstances if your partner is abusive or they have an addiction
Right.
and
Of
there's
course.
issues.
Of
That I'm not
course.
talking about. I'm talking about that when you get into a relationship, it's a practice every day of choosing that I want to be loving or relate and be committed to this person that I said and make it happen.
Right.
And
Yeah.
that's called being in, that's not called being in love and then it's gone.
Right.
It's in the practice of loving your partner, which
Yeah.
goes a long way. So
Yeah.
that's the first one.
Yeah.
The second one is, well, if you're practicing love and you're committed and you're going, okay, here it is. How do you set it up structurally to work? Meaning, and I said this to my sons, both of them, once you have children, if you decide to have children, children really eviscerate marriage
Yeah.
or relationship, if you have a committed relationship and you chose
Hmm.
not to be married.
Yeah.
When you're having children, they all of a sudden become so important and take over such a big space.
Yeah.
Everything that you thought you had goes out the window because it's their turn, it's their demand, they're the
Yeah.
priority. And that's where things go askew. So I said the most important thing is to set up date night once a
Yeah.
week or every 2 weeks
Hmm.
and to get away twice a year for at least a weekend and find a great sitter for the kids
Yeah.
to really have a time, let's say if the kids are napping or whatever they're doing, but a time that's sacred where you can set aside all the busyness of life and cooking and shopping and taking kids here and there. And it's maybe a Sunday morning, like it's 6:30 or 7 in the morning over coffee, that you end up making a sacred time to relate to each other.
Yeah.
And there's so many different ways of one of my favorite one is it's from a woman named Ellen Bader, and it's called the Developmental Model for Couples.
Mm.
And it's a way of speaking and listening. So one's the listener and one's the speaker, because you can't have them both speaking.
Right.
And they get like 10 minutes to talk about what's happening with him. And the listener, all they do is repeat back every so often what they hear you
Mm.
saying. Do I have
Yeah.
that right? Do I have that right? And it's not about giving feedback. It's not about debating. It's not, all you're doing is being present, being curious, listening to your partner, repeating back to them, this is, thank you for listening to me. And that's it.
Yeah.
That is a great, I can't tell you. My husband and I actually do this. That's why I'm not like saying, go ahead and do it because I don't.
Right. Right.
But
Right.
it really works. In
Yeah.
fact, especially for people whose minds kind of wander when your partner's talking, which happens,
Right. Yeah.
this, so you have to like say, so what I hear you saying is this. Do I have that right? Yes, you do.
Yeah.
And really, so much more sinks in for me about what's going on with him that I would have probably not remembered if I
Mm.
didn't have to feed it back to him.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
structure is important.
Yeah, and I think that that's really helpful even if you don't have children because I think that and I think
Yeah.
it really builds on the first one in a nice way too because it's a way that you're choosing to actively love the person and choose
Mhm.
that person. And I think that when you're with somebody and again, this can apply to friendships as well, but like when you're with somebody for a long time, we start to take each other for granted
Yeah,
no matter what. And with all best intentions, life gets in the way, life gets busy
it
and
does.
we take that person for granted because they're always there. And so you're
Mhm.
like, well, they'll be there. Oh, they'll, but when you take that time, I just love this so much because you take your time and you stop and you're making choices. You're saying,
Mhm.
let's make sure we're having a date night. Let's make
Mhm.
sure we're going away. Let's make sure that we're talking to each other
You
and really
plan it.
holding space.
Mhm.
Yeah. You're
Mhm.
planning to hold space for your relationship. And that's a way to continue
Mhm.
being loving, continue to being present, and also continue to say, I'm making you a priority in the middle of life being the shit show that life
Crazy.
is,
That's right.
right? I mean, because
Yes.
it's you're with each other through the highs and the lows and the everything's in between. And so you have, I think that's really great. Yeah.
Yeah. And it really helps. I mean, there's the high times in your relationship where you're like a roller coaster at the top and
Yeah.
everything's going well and you're like really loving it. And then there's the low times
Yeah.
when everything seems to be falling apart and you're really struggling with your partner. And I mean, that's happening for me right now because of my knee surgery. is that I'm not exactly the best person to be in relationship. I'm kind of grumpy sometimes.
Right. Yeah.
And so my husband would look at me, and as he listens to me sharing, he's like, we're going to get through this together, So it's one of those kinds of things that, it's a together thing. It's not
Yeah.
like, well, good
Yeah.
luck, Jan. I hope you do okay with it. You're
Right.
really,
Yeah.
so
Yeah. And I think too that, right? Sometimes you don't like your person. Like
true.
sometimes your person's
You don't
annoying.
like their
Sometimes,
behaviors. Hmm.
right. Yeah. Sometimes it's just it's a lot. And I think that in those moments when you're allowing yourself to really be present with them, you can kind of probably be reminded of the things that you love about them and why you
Yeah,
enjoy
I like
them.
that.
And
Hmm.
so I think there's that side of it too, because it also it makes you kind of put down your defenses, right? Because if you have some stuff boiling, but then you have to stop and listen, you kind of have to be present with that person and let some of
Yeah,
the
the
crap
key
go.
to listening is to be, curious about what someone's saying
Yeah.
and to really work hard on not being judgmental. So
Yeah.
it's a practice of mindfulness. I'm going to be curious, I'm going to be present, and I'm not going to be in judgment. I'm going to say, oh, that's curious about that person. I never knew that about them.
Mm,
So that's when you know you're in that most functioning place and you're
right.
able to actually listen to someone.
And you're
So.
not always in your head trying to thinking about what you're going to say
Right.
next.
Make your defense.
Yeah.
Okay. As soon as they're done talking, I'll tell them what I think. No, no,
Right. Yeah.
that's the whole point of that, is that
Yeah.
it's not about back and forth. It's really about one person listening to the other person, repeating back, and really getting who that person is.
Yeah.
Now, that brings me to number three,
Okay.
which is one thing I love, and it's unfortunate because as I've gotten older and I've been in practice for 30 years, I know I'm not going to be in practice for 30 more years. But the field of psychotherapy
Hmm.
has increased and there's so many new, what I would call theoretical orientations for working with couples, for working with trauma, and the field is blossoming. I'd say in the last 15 years, there's so much available out there.
Yeah.
And one of the things that I said to both of my sons at their rehearsal dinner is, if you find you get into trouble and you're really, really starting to look other places, you're doing more self-medicating, and
Mm,
you're really struggling, get help.
yeah.
End
Yeah.
of the story. That's it. Get help. There's no shame, no shame in really going, I need some help. It will save you a bundle rather than getting divorced.
Yeah.
It will help you understand yourself more, and
Yeah.
it will serve the practice of loving your partner greatly because you're trying to figure out your part in it. It's not like, hey, can you fix my partner? It's
Yes.
about, hey, what's happening with me and what do I keep bringing to this relationship? And that's another thing, if I wish I had a quarter for every time someone came in here, they'd sit down, they'd point the finger, and they'd say,
Hmm.
can you fix that in her or in him? And I'd be like,
Oh.
no, but I can certainly help you understand yourself and fix you.
Yes. Yeah, I actually wrote down when you were talking, keep your side of the street clean.
Yes.
And that's what that is. Yeah.
It is. And that's Pia Mellody used to always say, don't jump into the pig pen with them. Stay
Mm.
on your own lane,
Yeah.
stay in your own pig pen.
Yeah.
And it's true because, people say, oh, well, get through this, we'll get through this. And, maybe for the first year or so, you might think that, but I'm saying, please, please, this is another time I wish I had a quarter for every time I got
Yeah.
this. A couple would come in here and they had been doing this, hating each other for many, many years. And then after 20 years, they didn't get help. And it's really
Yeah.
hard to help a couple who's been at it for 20, 25
Yeah.
years.
That's
And that's
deep.
why, yes, and that's why you see so many couples getting divorced after the kids are out of the house.
Right. Right. Because people stay together for the kids, quote
That's
unquote. And
right.
yeah. Yeah, I think that's such an important piece. Like I said, that's one of the thoughts that I had was keep your side of the street clean. And one of the things that I've learned post my relationship that actually helped me as we were still trying to talk and trying, we were trying to, whatever we were trying to do. But I started being a part of these defensiveness classes that Lisa Merlo Booth, who's been on our podcast, teaches. And since I, help her with her tech, I would just sit in these classes to help with the tech and stuff. And in the meantime, I'm listening and learning and was like, holy crap, I'm defensive because we're all defensive in some way. And so, but through that, I got to
Hmm,
start
great.
hearing and seeing parts of myself and the way that I was showing up in relationship with my ex and with others in my life, my mother, and just in various ways that I was showing up defensive and pointing blame on them and all of these things. And as soon as I started, and it's hard, it's still hard, right? Like you have to do it all the time. But like when you start seeing the way you're showing up and you're going, huh, okay, I'm being manipulative there, or I'm being defensive, or it changes things. And
Patty, I notice that about you. I
oh,
love working with you because I thought, gosh, usually people are always defensive and they're like trying to explain why everything is the way it is and why they can't do what they're doing and like, what did you do? And I'm so used to that. That's what I really noticed that about you and I
oh,
really appreciate it.
thank you. Yeah, well, thank Lisa Merlo Booth and
Yep.
and therapy. But
Good
but
old
yeah,
Lisa.
yeah.
Mhm.
But it makes a big difference when you're able to see that and you have to put your ego aside for it and recognize that stuff. But man, it changes everything. And it just brings you so much more peace because you're
Yeah.
just like, oh, there's why? Why do we want to show up that way? So when we're showing up in relationship and we're not trying to convince the other person of this or push some sort of agenda and we're just at ease, it
Mhm.
either allows them and actually almost you're leading by example. So it's giving them space to show up.
Mhm.
It's giving them space to do what they need to do while you're taking care of yourself and keeping your side of the street clean and or it allows the relationship to be done and
Mhm.
run its course and say maybe this isn't it because if that person's not going to match this there is nothing that I can do other
True.
than do my
True.
part
Hmm.
and if you don't want to match and you don't want to show up and I've given patience and I've done whatever all I can do is say here's what's the best piece for me and
Hmm.
let go. And
Yeah,
sometimes that's a part of it too, is not
it
all
is.
relationships are going to make it.
They are not. And you're now identifying the very thing that really breaks a relationship. And that's a person that has chosen, well, they don't know if they've really chosen it. They keep thinking they're
Yeah.
just right,
Right.
not to grow and
Right.
to really look at themselves. I mean, because ultimately we do need to have that lens of looking at the self and being able to be compassionate, but also to realize that we're human and we have some 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 features that aren't exactly great in relationship.
Yeah.
I was just
Yeah.
thinking something else you said about when in relationship, and this has to do with boundaries. And of course,
Yeah.
I could go on forever about boundaries, but it having boundaries, so some people are too porous and they take it all in, and then they
Yeah.
get defensive. And some people use walls and they don't take
Mm,
anything in, and they push it back and they point the finger at you. And so,
mm.
really cleaning up, your side and my side is how do I really work with someone in these internal boundaries that I'm using and speaking and listening and how that is for me. So I think
Yeah.
that's really important. And I know Lisa works with that too. So
Yeah. Yeah. Another thing that I find that for me was always kind of important and that I see sort of around me is this idea of a person, a relationship is going to complete me and that there's a lot of interdependence and kind of
yeah.
there's a lot of that, right? I need to find my other half and I need to
Mhm.
find my that person's going to complete me that but and I don't think that that's a healthy idea. I think
No.
in a relationship we should be two people that are living our lives and choosing again it goes back to choosing every day we're choosing to share and
Mhm.
intertwine our lives together but I don't need you. I want you. I choose you. You ideally make parts of my life better and I improve parts of
Yep.
yours. instead of like I need you in order to be okay, this
Right,
idea, right?
right,
Which we were fed a long time ago too, of like women need a man to pay the
right.
bills and do these things, and men need women to cook and all these
Yep.
things. And if we tear that apart and we just look at ourselves as two individuals who are like, dude, I like you and I want you in my life.
Right. And we
Yeah.
share our lives together. We're loving
Yeah.
with each other. And it's really being with someone in
Yeah.
life sometimes helps with some loneliness and makes life easier having someone around,
Yeah. Totally. And
But
fun and all sorts of cool stuff.
exactly.
Yeah.
And yeah, whether you have children or not.
Right.
And you brought up something that's interesting. You said interdependence. So I wanted to just chat about that for a
Yeah.
minute. Well, I remember working with Pia like 20 years ago, and she used to call these her golden rules for interdependence. Now
Hmm.
there's anti-dependent, which some people are like, don't let anyone do anything for them, and they
Right.
do everything on their own, and they're like, the macho man or something. And then there's the too dependent, and I'm
Mm.
dependent, like you were saying, on someone else, and they fulfill me and
Right.
they connect me, and my life is something because I'm dependent on them.
Right.
And what she talked about is interdependence. And
Mm.
she had defined it with three golden rules. And I use this all the time. And it's really hard. So I don't know if you've heard this ever, me saying this before. But the first one first rule for interdependence is ask for help if you can't do it yourself.
Mm. Yeah.
When you can do it yourself, do it yourself,
Yeah.
okay? But like you have knee surgery or you are someone dies in the family and you need someone to go do something or pick your mother up or whatever.
Yeah.
You don't go into, oh, I can do this all myself and get overwhelmed
Mhm.
and be resentful because you're doing it.
All right.
So that's the key is that when do what you can for yourself, but when you can't do that and you need help is to ask for help. Now that's
Yeah.
a lot of people are like, no, I don't ask for
Huge.
help.
And
Yeah.
ask for help. Don't say, man, it really would be nice if somebody would. Like, no.
Or whine about it
Yeah.
or,
I have to do
covertly,
this thing. You know,
oh, my life
God,
is
I
so
hate that. It's
right.
such a pet peeve for me.
I have to do this
Like,
thing.
use your word. Like, if somebody is like,
Use your words.
oh, I'm gonna have to do all these things. Like, do you need help? Is this your way of wanting
Oh
somebody to
no, I'm
volunteer?
gonna get through this, no problem. I know,
Like,
is that
yeah,
crazy?
the number of times I've said to a specific human in my life, please use your words is,
Yeah.
like,
Well,
if you need something, just ask me. I'm happy to do it, but
right.
I'm not going to do it if you're going to be passive aggressive. Like, and we do that. Because we're afraid to ask for help or we have our walls. I'm guilty of this. I used to do this in my relationship. I would assume that he could read my mind if I looked a certain way or sighed a certain way. Like somehow he
Oh,
magically knew what my, yeah.
that's another thing I could get a quarter for and be rich
Yeah.
is women who come in and
Oh
they
my
never
gosh.
ask their husband and then they just carry this big, huge
Yeah.
bag of resentment.
Yeah,
Yeah.
I totally did that with him. Totally. Like, how did he, like, we're laying in bed and I am thinking about he should know that I'm feeling something, but I've said absolutely nothing about it. And he's just supposed to see that I'm looking a certain direction or sighing a certain way. Like, but I got that from my mother.
Yeah.
And, yeah. So seeing
Yes.
that was another
Yeah.
part of that
And
defensive.
that is so toxic for
Oh
resentment
my
and
God, yes.
feeling like you're a victim. And we believe people are not victims. We always have a choice once
Mm-hmm.
we're adults. I'm not saying
Absolutely.
kids who
Yeah.
are young, they are victimized, and that's different.
Yeah.
So that's the first one she talks
Yeah.
about it. You can explore that with all kinds of people, and they're like, "Whoa, I don't know if I could ask for help," and
Yeah.
or I don't know what to do. I can't do this. So the second one, which is one of my favorites because I get into this, don't say yes if you really want to say no
Mm.
to avoid overextending yourself and getting resentful. So meaning how many times when people ask you for something, and this you be a classic person because everyone's asking you for things,
Hmm.
is I say yes, and then I start getting resentful and I overextend myself, and then I
Yeah.
punish my partner because I'm saying yes. Oh, I'll do the dishes. Oh, yeah, I'll pick that up. So don't say
Hmm.
yes when you want to say no. And so this is what I started doing with that. I start when people would ask me to do things, I'd think to myself, am I going to be resentful if I say yes?
Oh.
And I would go, yes, you are, Jan. You're going to be really resentful. Do not say yes. And many men who come in here another quarter to make me
Mm.
rich say, oh, I can't say no to my wife because then she punishes me or she does, gets resentful.
Mhm.
And I said, I understand that can happen if they're in their immature self or a part of them. But I said, really, you're going to save your life because you're not going to be walking around with this bag of resentment.
Yeah.
So remember to ask those questions. So what do you think of that? Don't you think that's a great one?
I think that's brilliant. I love that stopping and asking yourself, am I going to resent this? I think, yes, that's amazing. And that's like that taking that beat before just saying yes. Yeah, I'm a people pleaser. So I'm a
Yeah,
yes, yes, yeah.
exactly.
I always, yes, 100%. And so it's hard, those boundaries. That's so, so hard to put yourself first in that way.
Yep. Yep.
And if you're going to feel a certain way and you're going to like push a boundary, because you want to go out of your way to help somebody, that you're making that choice and saying, I'm going to do this. I know I don't want to do this, but I'm not going to be resentful that I'm doing
Right.
this. Like to really make it a conscious
Exactly.
choice. I think that's brilliant.
Yes. Because Pia would always say, so then if you say yes, make sure that when you walk away, you can't get resentful about it. You cannot
Yeah.
go, I'm going to punish them now. I mean, they always keep asking me, no, that's your problem. So
Right. Yeah.
don't say yes when you want to be saying no to avoid being resentful. I love that. That's
hmm
one of my faves because
Yeah.
people pleasers do it all the time. They get
All
into
the
big trouble,
time.
big
Yeah.
trouble.
hmm
And then the last one is don't do for others what they can do for themselves to avoid enabling them. You're laughing. What
Yeah.
did that do? What
Because
did
I'm codependent. And so
mm,
I'm a people pleaser, I'm codependent, and I want to save the world. Those are my little complexes. So what you just said is me. Like I always and I actually had to set that boundary with my mother for myself
oh,
because
I'll bet.
she was very sheltered and taken care of her entire life. Her sister always took care of her, and then she went with my father, and then immediately so she's always been babied her whole
Yeah.
life. And so she
Dependent.
very easily fell into this role with me becoming caregiver. And
Mhm.
so everything, like she says things to me as if I'm her mother. Like, do I have to do, like, I'm not your mother. I don't, yeah. And so it's very hard. And so it's for me, it's like I would step in and just automatically help with things and automatically. And so I had to do my own work and set that boundary because I was being
Yeah.
resentful. I was saying yes to everything. And so I had to get to that point where I just wouldn't even offer.
Mhm.
And I would say things like, if you want me to do something, I need you to ask me. I'm not going to volunteer anymore. I'm not going to do these
Patty.
things. Yeah, it was hard. And I'm not going to respond to I just was really clear about that because I was feeling I had all these issues. And again, therapy, right? Therapy helped me to get there.
Yep.
And so that's the way it is now. But I still internally want to jump in and do things. And I have to stop myself because that's exactly right. Like if they can do it for themselves, who are you to step in and take that
Yes.
independence away from them
Mhm.
also, right? Like, why do you think you can do it better? Like in that way, like that was sometimes the way that I needed to do it is be like, it's kind of self-centered and egotistical in this one way to assume that you're going to do something better or that they can't do something,
Mhm.
right?
Yeah, I mean, I think people who are perfectionists, they get into they
Yeah.
can't do it like, so I have to do
Yep.
it for them, and they
hmm
don't even ask. And what they're doing is really stunting the growth of their
Yes.
children, if we're talking about raising children, or their friends learning to be interdependent and
Yeah.
be able to mature and grow. So,
Yeah. And mature and grow together,
hmm
right? I mean, we're talking about relationships. I mean, that's the piece too, is when you're both allowing yourselves to hold space and grow, you're allowing yourselves to grow together in a really beautiful way, if that's the way that it works out, because sometimes you grow very differently and that's okay
hmm
too. But you're not giving that person the opportunity to show up for themselves, to take care of
Yep,
themselves, to show up for
yep,
you.
yep.
you know?
Yep.
Yeah.
It's all the above. And so that's what Pia would always say, the three golden rules of
Mm.
interdependence,
Yeah,
INTER dependence, rather
that's great.
anti or dependent. So
Yeah.
and so whenever I'd work with couples, I'd always talk to him about those and say, okay, so here's where you are, Mr. Jones. You've got, you're not saying no to her and you're getting really resentful. And then for the woman, well, you're not asking for what you need and want. And so you're getting very resentful. And so no
Yeah.
wonder couples who don't follow these rules or enabling someone and being resentful. It all brings
Yeah.
this whole kind of resentment up. And that is so toxic for a relationship. That is you got to
Yeah.
get rid of that. So
Yeah. Yeah. I think the final thing is communication, communication, communication. Like,
yeah.
my goodness, like so much would be fixed if we just got out of our heads and out of our little worlds and just said what we needed, said what we felt.
Mhm.
And it is hard. It's hard because you don't know how somebody will respond. You don't know, you can't control that. But again, if you don't say something because so this was actually an issue in my last relationship is he would this was his way of not wanting to express himself and his own inability to kind of express himself, but he would put it on me and he would say, well, I didn't want to say anything because I thought how you'd react this and that, and I would always be like, you act like I'm some crazy person that's gonna like fly off the handle,
And
which
that's not up to you. How
I
you
never
react
did.
is, I know
And
it's up to
yeah.
you,
And that's what I would
not
say
him.
is I'm like, you're not giving me a chance to even respond
Yeah.
or to show you that that's like for me to grow or to change or, because maybe I responded a certain way in the past. And so he didn't think I'd respond well. Like, well, that was 2 years ago. I've grown as a person. You're not allowing me to show up and to take something in, and you're not trusting me. You're not trusting that I'm going to hear you and sit with it and then respond. You're assuming I'm going to be reactive. You're making up a lot about me. And when we make up about each
There we
other,
go. Makeup. Mm-hmm.
yeah, we're just it's some fake person that you're creating, which I think is when we come back to choosing love and that idea of looking for love is a lot of times we're making up an idea of who we want and this, and like this ideal
It's
of
a
love, and we're in
fantasy.
love with
Yes.
the idea
Mhm.
of being in love, and that's
Mhm.
what keeps us sometimes with people when it's not we're not looking at the real relationship and the real interaction because we're in love with the potential, we're in love with an idea, we're wanting a
We're in
love.
fantasy.
We're
We're
in
in fantasy.
fantasy.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Mhm.
And you
Exactly.
can't be in fantasy when you're in a real relationship because it's not all sunshines and roses, and sometimes it is and sometimes it's amazing, and
Mhm.
there's all these really great things, but also just like life, it's hard and it's real and it's raw and like, but the best you can do is be honest,
Mhm.
trust, and allow that person to show up. And
Yeah.
if that person doesn't show up and doesn't show up for you and doesn't show up,
Right.
then that gives you everything you need to know and you can't change that.
That's
And I
right.
think that's the biggest thing when it comes to
Showing
all
up. I love that
relationships.
word, as showing up. And though, in order for someone to show up, you've got to be able to tell them they're not showing up,
Yes.
or what you want. And this is why it's really important.
Yeah.
Terry Real, who I did train with for about 4 years, he talked about that love. It first starts out. This is what he would always say about relationship. It's love without knowledge. You fall in
Mhm.
love. You're in
Yeah.
fantasy. You're everything I want it to be. And then, a year or two goes by, maybe children, and then it's knowledge without love. It's like, oh my God, who did
Mm.
I marry? What is this? This is crazy. I don't like this person.
Interesting.
And he said that that's where most people get stuck, right there. And then there's a last cycle where you go and you learn to repair. And repair is what we're talking about here, the practice of
Yeah.
something every day, the practice of loving, the
Yeah.
practice of structuring time together, the practice of being able to get help if you need it, if you're really
Yeah.
stuck.
Yeah.
And, and then what Pia was saying is the practice of asking for what you need and want. I need you to show up for me.
Yeah.
The practice of saying no. And no, oh, this is one thing she used to say, which I loved, is that she said you should always learn in a couple relationship to celebrate the no. I
Oh
remember
yeah.
telling it to these guys, and they're like, "Oh my God, what does that mean?" Yeah, celebrate the no. Is first of all, when you said no, it's an act of saying self-care for yourself. No, I can't pick up your dry cleaning because I have too many things I have to do today.
Yeah.
And can your partner get the no, and can they survive? Can they still go, "Oh, I can still get through this. Doesn't mean that he doesn't love me. It just means he's taking care of himself."
Yeah.
That's great. And so those are the reasons to celebrate no, is that they actually help the relationship. And most people
Yeah.
then take it personally. And
Yeah.
then and so no is important. And the last one is the enabling piece that you were talking about, is
Yeah.
getting in the way of somebody else growing up and really doing it for them, keeping them small. So
Yeah. Yeah, and I think when we talk about showing up, I think it's important to say like when we allow them to show up, but we also need to tell them if they're not showing up, what does showing up look like for me? Because showing up for
exactly.
me is going to look different than showing up for you.
Mhm.
Because and that's where I think like I have issues sometimes with the whole what is your love language thing. I think that I think
Yeah.
it's kind of bullshit in this way, but at the same time, I like the idea of taking time to learn what because that's what that is really the
Mhm.
love language thing is what does showing up mean for me? Like what does it
Mhm.
mean for me or how do I understand when somebody is telling me that they care or something like that? And
Mhm.
like, for
And that
me, I
comes with
like
the listening part, listening
yeah,
to each other and this
yeah,
is who I am. And I think that's really important. And there's another thing that people need to know about relationship before we we end
yeah,
here, is that Terry Real's model for working with couples, emotionally focused model for working with couples, and I would even say Ellen Bader's relational model, developmental model for couples at the Couples Institute, that there's a pattern that everybody has in a relationship. Like, let's say the woman is like a complainer and is never asking for things or just complaining all the time.
yeah.
And the more she complains to her husband, the more he feels incapable of being able to meet her needs. So he starts
Mm,
withdrawing. And when
yeah,
he withdraws, the more she pursues him. And the more he withdraws, the more she pursues him. And it's this vicious cycle. And that's what in couples work, is you get to look again at yourself. What part of that cycle am I doing? And turning around and changing that. And that's the patterns they call it. Terry called it more, the more. The EFT people call it your negative core
yeah,
pattern cycle. So, but that also has to do with us examining ourselves. We're back to that again,
yeah, yeah.
working our side of it, right?
Yep. Yeah. So I think the best resource that you can have to move forward in relationship with people is to get therapy, get help,
Right.
and work on yourself. Just
Yeah,
start, take little steps to start being aware of yourself and be aware of
exactly.
your feelings, be
Mhm.
aware of how you're communicating, and just start small because we're talking like these are, if you've not been doing those things that we're talking about, you can't just do it all at once and make these
Right.
changes. But these are little things that you can start incorporating, start setting your date nights, start with 2 minutes of talking in the morning and
Right.
listening, like
Right.
just start changing the way you're showing up for yourself. Start
Yep.
paying attention to how you're showing up on your side of the
Right.
street. I think that's the best way to start and start small and let it grow and see what happens.
Mhm. I mean, more of this is, and we'll put it in our resources we have. I'll send them to you. Is in Pia Mellody's book, The Intimacy Factor. She talks all about speaking and listening. Terry Real, and a lot of
Mm.
his book, talks about the same thing. Ellen Bader, in her books, she talks about the same thing. And Pia, and even in my book, which is Gifts from a Challenging Childhood, that covers some of those things about needs and wants and reality and who am I. And
Yeah.
so all of this, what we're kind of encouraging people is, if your relationships are struggling, get help. And
Yeah.
some of these things that we're talking about are very essential.
Yeah. And if your relationship is not struggling, start putting this stuff into play now so that it won't
I
struggle in
like
the
that.
future, or that you're ready and you have some tools in your tool belt, because at some point your relationship will struggle. That's just life.
Right.
And how much of a struggle and how long it struggles is dependent on the amount of work you guys are doing together, I think.
That's
So,
right.
yeah.
Exactly.
Well,
Yeah.
thanks for sharing this, Jan. This
Well,
was a
you're welcome,
great,
Patty.
yeah,
I
great
hope you enjoyed
conversation.
it. It was kind of right off the top of my head. So,
Yeah.
you
Well,
know,
yeah, your sons are very lucky to have such a wise mother.
I don't know about that. Of course, I try to stay on my side of the things rather than jumping in. So they
Hmm.
have to come to me if they want any, ask about that stuff.
That's great. Yeah. Well, thank you as
Well, thank
always.
you. And
Yeah,
we'll see each other again.
we will.
Thanks for listening to the podcast. If you like what you've heard, please share it with friends, subscribe, and leave a review.
And remember, information shared on this podcast is not medical advice. If you have a concern about your physical or mental health, please seek support from a professional.
If you have a story you'd like to share about things your mother forgot to mention, you can apply to be a guest.
We'd also love to hear a quick 90-second thing you've learned in your life.
You can find links to both of those over at our website at
thingsmymotherforgottomention.com or in the show notes.
Thank you.